Welcome. In front of me I have an HTC U23 Pro, and today I'll go unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. So let's just get straight into it. I guess there's nothing to cut. So right here we got the phone. Just get it straight out of here. Okay. Get our charging cable. Nothing in here, and a bunch of stickers, paperwork. Okay, so we don't have a charger, we just have a cable, and it's a Type-C to Type-C. So even if you have a cable or charger, you probably can't use this cable, because most of the chargers usually have a Type-A USB, not Type-C on them. But anyway, let's turn it on. Now right off the bat you'll be able to see the display right here, which is a 6.7-inch display. It's a 1080p by 2400 pixels display, OLED with 120 Hz refresh rate, 84.4% screen to body ratio, and about 393 pixels per inch. So the display right here is actually pretty decent. Now what isn't decent is the sound. Now the glass right here also, the cover one, is a Cornell Gorilla Glass Victus, so it should be pretty durable. And flipping it over, we can see our quad camera setup. I can probably already guess, I haven't looked at it just yet, that half of these cameras will be absolute garbage. I can feel that. So main sensor is 108 megapixel wide sensor, optical mid stabilization. Then we got an 8 megapixel 120 degree ultra wide, and then we got a 5 megapixel macro. Surprised. And there we go, there's our shit camera. So it's a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Surprisingly enough, they decided to make a 5 megapixel macro, which at least at 5 megapixels will actually produce a pretty okay photo, I would argue. Usually I would expect a 2 megapixel macro, and that would be absolute garbage, but that's actually not bad. Now moving on to the internals. So we have a couple different options of the device. So we have in both cases 100 or 256 gigabytes of storage, and you can have either 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. In both cases 8 or 12 will be sufficient enough for most people. So if you want to save up money, you could go for the 8 and probably won't feel much of a difference between these two devices. We also have a SD card expansion, so if you need more than 256 gigs of storage, pop in an SD and you're good to go. Now, moving into the internals a little bit deeper, device has a 4600 mAh battery, which is actually quite small considering the absolute behemoth size of this device. This is relatively on the low side, to be honest. We also have a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 that is powering this device. And that's about it. Now moving into the outside, we do have our fingerprint sensor that doubles as a power button, our volume rockers. At the top we have a headphone jack and a microphone. And then on our left side we got absolutely nothing. And then at the bottom, our SIM/SD tray, charging port, another microphone, and speaker grills. And that's about it. Oh, and I didn't mention one last thing, which is the selfie camera right here. That is a 32 megapixel wide sensor. Now, going back to the cameras, with the back cameras you can record videos at 4K 30 or 1080p 30, while the front one does only 1080p 30. So there we go, that's the entire device. Now last thing that I'll mention is the price of this device, coming at about $600 US. It is vastly overpriced for what you get. And if you don't mind using a Chinese device, I would highly recommend going for something like the Xiaomi Poco F5 Pro, which will be, I believe, cheaper than this, if I remember correctly, for about the same price. While coming with just flagship grade specs with a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, maybe not the fastest one, the fastest one would be Gen 2, but it's very close there. And also having bigger battery, better cameras, I would argue. bigger battery, faster storage type, and in general the device itself will be faster. Also, if that matters, I would argue it looks better just in terms of aesthetics, but that is preferential, so yeah, just kind of wanted to add that. So yeah, just going back to this device, I feel like this device is a little bit too overpriced. For over $600 you just get a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 instead of like Snapdragon 8 that I would argue for this price should be already included. And the device, or at least it feels like majority of the price that you get to pay went to the display right here, being an OLED 120 Hz refresh rate display, but it just kind of feels off on a device that is, at least in hand, feels a little bit more budget. So it costs too much, feels budget in hand, gives you a good display, but that's arguably the only redeeming quality of this device, and isn't enough to justify this arguably high price tag for this phone. So there we go, that's basically my overview of this device. So if you found this very helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.